I think we've misunderstood one of the most famous stories about Jesus. The miracle wasn't just that he calmed the storm, it's that he slept through it first. Stick with me for a moment because I think we may have been reading this story a little differently than it was meant to be read. Welcome back to Bound by Grace. I'm your host, Amy, and today we're sitting with one of the most dramatic moments in the entire Gospel of Mark. Chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. The storm on the Sea of Galilee. Now, before we even step into the scene, there's something important you need to know about the people in that boat. These weren't nervous tourists on a cruise ship. These were fishermen, men who grew up on that water, men who knew that sea the way a farmer knows his land. They had seen storms before, and yet they were terrified, not uncomfortable, not slightly worried. Terrified. The kind of fear that makes you think, this is it. We're not making it out of this. And Jesus? He's asleep. On a cushion. In the back of the boat. And honestly, that's either the most unbothered moment in human history, or it's something way deeper than that. I think it's both. Because his sleep wasn't ignorance. It wasn't indifference. It wasn't him being checked out or not caring about what the disciples were going through. It was peace. A kind of peace so deep, so anchored, that the very thing terrifying everyone else couldn't even disturb his rest. And I think that might actually be the first display of power in this whole passage. Before he says a word to the storm, before he rebukes the wind, the fact that he could rest in it. That's the example. That's what it looks like to live without fear. Not because the storm isn't real, not because the waves aren't crashing over the boat, but because you know who holds it all. Jesus knew. So he rested. Eventually, the disciples wake him up, panicking, and Jesus stands, rebukes the wind, and tells the waves, "Peace, be still." And just like that, everything stops. No negotiation, no gradual process, just silence. The sea goes from chaos to calm. But then something interesting happens. Jesus doesn't say, "See, I told you." Instead, he turns to them and asks, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" In other words, he addresses the storm inside them before he addresses the one outside. And I think that's the deeper lesson here. Because fear isn't just an emotion. Fear is a revealer. It shows you what you actually believe. When life hits you with financial pressure, when a relationship falls apart, when a health crisis shows up out of nowhere, how do you respond? Because that response reveals where your faith is living in that moment. And I'm not saying that to make anyone feel guilty. Honestly, I think it's freeing to be honest about it. To say, yeah, I panicked. Yeah, the storm felt bigger than what I believed. That's human. That's real. But here's the part I don't want us to miss. Jesus was in the boat. He was there the whole time. And that matters more than we realize. Because a lot of us quietly believe that if God is really present, there won't be storms. That if we're faithful enough, if we're doing the right things, life should smooth out. But that's not what happened here. Jesus was the one who said, "Let's go to the other side." He led them into the crossing, and the storm still came. His presence wasn't the absence of the storm. His presence was being in it with them. And the same is true for us. He sees the thing keeping you up at night. He sees the situation you're trying to figure out, and what might feel like silence, what might feel like he's asleep in your situation. Sometimes that silence is simply sovereign patience. He isn't checked out. He's not unaware. He's waiting for the right moment. And his timing may not be our timing, but his timing is always right. After the miracle, the disciples don't just feel relief. They're in awe. They go from fearing the storm to fearing Him. And they ask a question that echoes through the entire gospel. Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey Him. And that question changes everything. Because the moment you truly start wrestling with who Jesus is, not just a historical figure, not just a good teacher, but the one who speaks and chaos obeys, your fears start to shrink. Not because your problems disappear, but because your perspective changes. Worship isn't escapism. It's not pretending the storm isn't there. It's looking at the one in the boat with you and remembering He's done this before. He's got this. And He's got me. So wherever you are today, whatever storm you're facing, remember this. No storm is beyond His authority. No fear is beyond His reach. He's in the boat, and He always has been. Thanks for sitting with me today on Bound by Grace. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need the reminder. And I'll see you in the next one.